defending the free market, and making the moral case for capitalism. The Justin Moore Show.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Justin Moore Show, where we make sense of what's going on in this crazy, insane, out of control world. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I am recording this right before I head to the Contra cruise. I'm actually flying out tomorrow. I know every time I talk to you guys, I'm like flying out somewhere. So I'm just a few days late getting this one out. It's been crazy, still doing harvest. And when I get back from going places, I mean, just playing catch up and then leaving again. But it's just been crazy travel these last few weeks. But finally, after the Contra cruise, it will all slow down and I can catch back up. And there is one little item of bad news here, and that is I don't have an episode ready when I'm gone. Next week, when I'm on the Contra cruise, there ain't nothing coming out. Unless I somehow pull one out of, where, around midnight tonight or something when I get back from work at the airport. But then I'm leaving early in the morning, so I don't know. Just plan on, that's not going to happen. And so the drawing for the silver coin, that will take place right when I get back from the Contra cruise. So we'll do that on that episode. So for you guys, if you guys want to get in on the drawing for the silver coin and get my bonus episodes, you need to sign up for Tom Woods' Liberty Classroom. I know you guys listen to Tom Woods. He has a great libertarian podcast out there. He has a lot of great guests, very knowledgeable guests, talking about a wide variety of issues. And he's going to be on the cruise with me, and Bob Murphy's going to be there, all sorts of guys. So please go to my website, go to justinmooreshow.com, Moore is spelled M-O-H-R. And if you click on the picture of Tom Woods there, the Liberty Classroom, you just purchase, a subscription to his Liberty Classroom, and you get access to it's 18 classes. You can learn, there's classes on political philosophy and history, history of conservatism, if you're coming from things from that angle. And there's also stuff, talking about Austrian economics, understanding it, basic 101 stuff. Then there's understanding Keynesian economics. All this stuff is on Tom Woods' Liberty Classroom. So you guys who listen to this show, this is right up your alley. So if you sign up for Tom Woods' Liberty Classroom through my link, I'll send you my bonus episodes. You also get in the drawing for the silver coin that will take place in less than 2 weeks when I get back. And also you can get in for the silver coin if you already are a member of Tom Woods' Liberty Classroom, so you're not going to sign up again. Well, then just click on my little PayPal link. And if you donate $50 to my show, you get my bonus episodes and you get signed up for the drawing for the silver coin. So please do that, guys. And this is the silver coin that's minted in 2017, so this year. And I hope you guys do that. It's a great opportunity for you guys. And anyway, I'm kind of wondering, what should I do an episode on before I leave for the Contra cruise? Scouring the news, looking through articles. And then I just come across this one. I'm like, oh gosh, this thing kind of torqued me off a little bit because the title of it, do I have it here? Oh yeah, wait, it's right here. So this is an article that's coming from Project Syndicate. Now this website is a liberal site, okay? And this article is called The Case Against Free Market Capitalism. And listeners of this show know how I start on every one of my episodes. I'm all about defending the free market and making the moral case for capitalism. And this article, I just read this. It's like, oh my gosh, you've got to be kidding me. So I'm going to have to read this to you guys and react to it because this just fits right in with my show. And it's by Najir Woods. It's a woman. And okay, yeah, I guess I basically have the whole article in front of me. I think what I'll do, I don't know. I think I'll probably read most of it. Maybe I'll read all of it. I don't know. We'll just see how things go. We'll play it by ear. So we start off here. Free market capitalism is on trial. In the United Kingdom, Labour Party leader Jeremy Corbyn accuses neoliberalism of increasing homelessness, throwing children into poverty, and causing wages to fall below subsistence level. For the defense, Conservative Prime Minister Theresa May cites the immense potential of an open, innovative, free market economy. Similar proceedings are taking place around the world. Just a quarter century ago, the debate about economic systems, state-managed socialism or liberal democracy and capitalism, seemed to have been settled. With the Soviet Union's collapse, the case was closed. Or so it seemed. Oh yeah, now here's where this guy transitions. So what happened with the collapse of communism with the Soviet Union? That's not evidence that communism doesn't work, that it's unsustainable. This guy is this is a woman. This woman's making the case that she's going to give evidence, what she thinks is evidence to her side, pointing out, hey, look, free market capitalism is a failure. And here's what she says. Get this, guys. Listen up. Since then, the rise of China has bellied the view that a state-led strategy will always fail, and the global financial crisis exposed the perils of inadequately regulated markets. In 2017, few of the world's fastest-growing economies, Ethiopia, Uzbekistan, Nepal, India, Tanzania, Djibouti, I don't even know that country existed, Laos and Cambodia, Myanmar, and the Philippines have free markets. And many free market economies are suffering from growth slowdowns and rapidly rising inequality. Okay, so what this guy just said here, because he had those countries in parentheses, so it's probably kind of confusing as I'm reading it, is he's pointing out, hey, look, China, it's a state-led economy. Look at the success China's having. Then he points out, look at the world's fastest growing economies. He's talking about Ethiopia, Cambodia, Myanmar, Philippines. And he's saying these fastest growing economies, they don't have free markets. That's his case. Like, they're far from free market. They don't have free markets. So, sorry, I keep calling this person who wrote this article a male. It's a female. I guess it doesn't really matter, but I guess to her it does. But with these countries, but the point that's being made here is pointing out, see, what do you mean that socialism doesn't work? We have in these countries with no free markets, and they're growing gangbusters. I mean, things are looking up. Well, there's a few problems with pointing this out. Okay, first off, it's like with anything. You're investing in the markets. Say if you want to, risk a little bit more capital, but you want to see higher returns, you don't necessarily invest the blue chip stocks. Your blue chip stocks are your big companies. Your Intels, your Microsofts, your Johnson & Johnsons, Walmart. Those are the blue chips. They're not going to see that much growth. I mean, they're huge. They're massive. They're well-developed companies already, okay? But then you go and say you want to have some of your portfolio in the growth stocks. Growth stocks are those companies that, they're maybe a few years old. They have a lot of growth potential, with possible new technologies coming along, that sort of thing, where they could see massive growth. You could see hundreds of % gains in a year or two, but you don't want to risk as much capital in that just because, there's more risk with them. Well, here's this woman in this article pointing out, well, these fastest growing economies, well, the last time I checked, like Ethiopia, Laos, Cambodia, Myanmar, Philippines, those aren't very big countries and they're not very rich. They're very, very poor countries. When I was on the cruise last year, I'm talking with this girl who was on the ship. She's from the Philippines. And actually, a lot of the people who work on these cruise ships, they're from the Philippines. They don't make very much money. Actually, I heard a statistic when I was over in Cuba. In the Philippines, like the average wage, they make about $500 a month. So you compare that to America, say the average person's making like $3,000 a month. They're significantly poorer in the Philippines. So when this woman's pointing out, look, these economies are growing so much faster. Wow. I mean, and see, free markets, you don't need free markets for growth. See? Well, look at the poverty. I don't really see very much to brag about. I mean, all you're looking at is a percentage gain. And yeah, as a country is very, very poor or things are very, very bad, to move to less bad and it's a high percentage, okay, that's great. But it's like when you're already very huge, to see that huge growth spurt, it's tougher. Okay, you're in a more mature market. So her just pointing out the percentages there, that's not evidence enough, but she obviously thinks it is. Let's just continue on. There's a lot more to get to here. I don't want to get hung up on just that point. Okay, against this background, some politicians are no longer defending free market capitalism in terms of economic growth or the gains from globalization. Instead, they focus on individual opportunity. May, for example, has credited the system with reducing infant mortality, increasing life expectancy, driving down absolute poverty, boosting disposable incomes, expanding access to education, and slashing illiteracy rates. But these claims aren't in line with the facts. Oh, here we go. Start with maternal mortality. Much of the world has made great strides in making childbirth safer, From 1990 to 2015, Albania reduced its maternal deaths by 100,000 live births from 29.3 to 9.6. China, the poster child for state-led growth, reduced its rate from 114.2 to 17.7. Meanwhile, the trend in the United States, the paragon of free market democracy, has gone in the opposite direction, with maternal deaths per 100,000 live births actually rising from 16.9 in 1990 to 26.4 in 2015. Equally shocking, the morbidity and mortality of white, non-Hispanic, middle-aged men and women in the U.S. increased between 1999 and 2013. Okay, so a lot of liberals like to point this out, and they like to show evidence that basically socialized medicine works. They're looking at mortality rates, like, wow, these countries, it's going way down. The U.S., it's actually been rising. But there's so many factors to figure in, and it's like, how do they figure out what a mortality death is? It just depends. When do you consider it? In the U.S., we're more strict with defining what a maternal death is compared to other countries. And that can completely throw off the statistics. So this really doesn't tell you anything. And actually, I wish I would have pulled that up to look at what different countries, how they look at it. So I could actually have some numbers, or so it's a lot easier to understand how they can be screwing with the statistics. So if you really think some of these poor countries are doing a better job in terms of the first years of life compared to the U.S., I mean, you're freaking dreaming. That's what I'm going to tell you. And also think about it too. What are some things that we've been able to do to help to potentially keep babies alive that before they didn't even have a chance at surviving, but now there still is a chance. So now if they do die from some new procedure, that can now be considered as a death, So there's so many more things we're doing that's improved. Now, don't get me wrong. The healthcare system in the United States, it's far, far, far from perfect. It's actually, there's a lot of horrible things, which I've talked about on previous episodes, how the reason why our healthcare has so much more to be desired is because of the government intervention in our healthcare system. That's what's made it so it's not actually operating in a free market. And that's a point I want to get to later, where this woman, as she's going through this article, I call her, sorry, if that offends you that I'm referring to as the woman, it's because I don't know how to say her name, and so I don't want to totally piss her off too much. So she's making the case here this whole time that she thinks that the U.S. is operating in a free market. But how many times on this show have I said, in the United States, we don't have a free market, not even close to a free market. Now, comparing to other countries, sure, our market is freer. But if you look at the Freedom Index, United States, we keep moving down the list as a less and less free country. And if you look at the countries that are at the top of the list in terms of economic freedom, like Singapore, Hong Kong, those seem to be the most prosperous countries. But you don't see any of this analysis in her little article here. But it's just kind of funny, because the reason I want to mention this and read this piece to you guys is just to point out, like, this is how a lot of people on the other side of the aisle, how they're looking at all these statistics. How we can take in the same statistics, but based on how your filter is, it completely changes how you look at things, And here, let's just continue on. The claim that free market policies / illiteracy is also misleading. In England, some 15% of adults, 5.1 million people, are still functionally illiterate, meaning that they have literacy levels at or below those expected of an 11-year-old. Scotland's most recent survey showed a decline in literacy, with less than half of the country's 13 and 14-year-olds now performing well in writing. In fact, if you Google successful literacy campaign, the country with astonishing literacy gains that fills your screen is Cuba. Hardly a free market system. So now, this lady is pointing out in this article, you guys are saying how successful and how great free markets are, but look, the illiteracy rates are horrible. Look over in England. But if you type in Google successful literacy campaign, what pops up and fills your screen is the word Cuba. Oh, Cuba, man, they're so literate over there. Yeah, they all know how to spell Che Guevara. Oh my gosh. But you also, that's really shallow analysis too. Okay, literacy rates. Now, I guess if we actually had a free market in education and our literacy rates were horrible, it's like, yeah, that would be telling us something. But here's another wrench I got to throw into this problem that this lady's pointing out in this piece. She's thinking she is behind, she's got the facts on her side, just comparing literacy rates. But we have a government-controlled education system, public education, especially since the 1970s, the government has had a heavy hand in the education system. We have a Department of Education. The Department of Education has a SWAT team, and I don't even know what the budget is for the Department of Education. Billions of dollars. So with this lady in her position that the government helps things prosper, why is our illiteracy rate so bad that if government is so great? If government is so good at trying to educate people? No, our education keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And that's why I also make the point on this show, I've done several times, like most people shouldn't go to college. College has gotten dumbed down. It's just an extension of high school. You really don't learn what you need to if you want to be successful. It's just idiotic, and it's just so funny. It's one thing after another in this piece. This lady thinks that let me look up, see what her name is. I'll call her Naguère. This Naguère Woods, she thinks she's completely dominating and just decimating people who believe in free markets. Like, see, you guys, good luck. I'm pointing out all these facts. See, you guys have been wrong all along. You guys can't compete with the literacy rates in communist Cuba, mortality rates in these other poor countries. The fastest growing economies in the world right now are these sort of socialist-like countries, or at least government-controlled economies. But all of these facts that she sees are in her favor, they can all be easily debunked. So let me just continue on here. I just have, I don't know, just a few more paragraphs here. And she continues on here. The conservative case, eloquently articulated by May, is that a free market economy operating under the right rules and regulations is the greatest agent of collective human progress ever created. If that claim is true, the only logical conclusion is that we are doing it wrong. So what measures are needed to get it right? The practical solution on offer seem to be fairly consistent across the political spectrum. Indeed, for all their furious positioning, the differences between left and right seems to have collapsed in this regard. Okay, she's right there. Yeah, the two parties are pretty similar. Both parties are growing the size of government. The government continues to grow year after year after year. So what is she talking about? How, the United States were such a free market. What, are you kidding me? Prior to the Great Depression, government spending in terms of the GDP was less than 3% of GDP. And government spending now is what? 30, 40%? I can't remember. I don't have the exact number here. I mean, the government is consuming a huge portion of the assets and the wealth that's created in this country every year. So, again, this gets to my point, arguing with this Naguère, that we don't have a free market. If we had a free market, our literacy rates would be much higher. Our healthcare would be much better. Our growth, in terms of our economy, how much wealth we grow, would be much better. Capital goes where it's treated best. So lowering taxes, reducing regulations, allowing people to engage in voluntary transactions with one another. When you set up a system like that, where there's less restrictions, do you think you're going to have more growth, more people trying to become entrepreneurial? Or do you think you'll have less? That's the question this Naguère girl should have to answer. She's not even talking about that. She thinks she's using this silly logic that the U.S. is some free market, that the U.S. is some bastion of free market capitalism, and all these other countries, okay, they're, sort of socialists, and she's just comparing it. And look, see? Capitalism don't work. That's stupid. You're not even looking at it correctly. And that's what's so frustrating. I was just reading this piece. It's like, you've got to be kidding me. And here, now she transitions here. So this girl's pointing out, she's not just pointing out the problems. Now she has some solutions that she thinks will work. So here, and she's like, in the UK, the first suggestion is to ensure economy-wide investment and growth, which will require government intervention. Corbyn proposes a national investment bank and transformation fund to mobilize public investment and create wealth and good jobs. Oh, yay. She's talking about government jobs. That's great. That always works out, doesn't it? Like those green jobs here in the United States, or Solyndra. May, for her part, suggests an industrial strategy to promote growth across the whole country, helping to turn local areas of excellence into national export champions. Second, private sector leadership must change in order to prevent short-term thinking, tax avoidance, and other forms of opportunism and personal enrichment. Here, Corbyn focuses on accountability in corporate boardrooms, while May calls for giving workers and shareholders a strong voice in firms' decision-making and ensuring that the largest companies have incentives to think long-term. Okay, I always make this point on my show, that the longest-term thinking people are the entrepreneurs out there. When it's your money at stake, your savings, you're the one who's thinking long-term. The people who are the most short-term thinking, the most short-term oriented, are politicians. People in the House, they're looking out to their next election. Well, they're up for election every 2 years, so they start their campaign, basically after their first year in office. And then you have the Senate. Those guys have 6-year terms. The president, 4-year terms. So they have short-term thinking. These politicians, they're always thinking about their next election. They got to survive. They have to basically bring pork into their constituency so that they can point out to the people that are going to vote for them, hey, look what I did for you guys. Look what I brought back, So that's how things work. So I don't know what she's talking about. And she thinks that the government is somehow this long-term focused thing and the free market or individuals aren't. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of financially illiterate people out there. And I blame that on the way our system is created these days. Ever since 1971, we've been on a fiat money standard, where we don't have money backed by gold anymore. And I made this point when I interviewed Keith Weiner, that, because we have a money that doesn't have any sort of set value, it's the money, you can just print more money with a mouse click, and it's backed by nothing. We basically have a dishonest money. And when you have a dishonest money, that creates dishonesty throughout the whole system. And immorality, it's all related. There's so many problems that are tied in with the fiat money. And every time in history, 100% of the time, fiat money, fiat currency collapses. It goes to zero every single time in history. And ladies and gentlemen, that's the way we're headed. And just the way people are thinking about all these things, like it's like the insane asylum is running this country. It's sickening. And to see this stuff, and people think Trump's gonna make America great again. A lot of people had so much hope that Trump was gonna drain the swamp, but it looks like he ain't gonna be draining no swamp. The swamp is there to stay until it all collapses and comes down. Then there'll be a new tomorrow, and hopefully with the new tomorrow, we can move and actually have a free market, because that is how you get real prosperity. Okay, let's move on here to more solutions that she proposes in her piece. So she's kind of referring to the Labour Party leader here, and then the Prime Minister May, and kind of showing what they think as solutions. Okay, and here we are. A third consecutive is to improve employees' pay and working conditions. In Britain, even as the economy has grown, wages have been dropping by 10% from 2007 to 2014. Corbyn promises to take action to stop employers from driving down pay and working conditions. Oh my gosh, look at this idiotic stuff. People who don't understand economics. Corbyn, the Labour leader party over in Britain, promises to take action to stop employers from driving down pay and working conditions. So they think that the government needs to step in. Oh man, if it wasn't for the government, you'd be working in these buildings with no air conditioner. During the wintertime, when it's 20 below, there'd be no heat. You'd freeze to death. Well, let me ask you, okay, if you really think that's how it would work, okay. If I was an employer, I just wanted to, don't want to have to worry about my heating bills during the wintertime. And it gets pretty cold here in Montana. How productive are your people going to be when they're at their desk, they're trying to type at their computer and their hands are frozen, they're frostbitten? You won't have productive employees. Like, they're just trying to survive. Like they can't function. You can't think when you're uncomfortable. So how does that make any sense? And if you actually have a competition for labor, and if you had less restrictions and there was a lower barrier to entry, so you could have more competition in all these different sectors, there's going to be a competition between employers fighting for the best employees. So pay will go up. You're not going to see pay go down. But it's because of the government getting involved is how we've gotten to this. And here's these stupid little fools like this Corbyn guy, the Labour leader party in Britain. Oh, we just need the government to step in and stop driving down pay. And we got to help the workers and improve working conditions. So if we just pass more laws, everything will be good. Oh, this stuff just pisses me off, I tell you. And now let's see what May has to say. For May, all work should be fair and decent, with scope for development and fulfillment. Both make the case for improving vocational training and technical education. Okay. Fourth, in Britain, the government must address the public housing crisis. Oh, great. Here we go. In the 1950s and 1960s, an average of some 300,000 houses were being built every year. That figure has now dropped to less than half. Corbyn proposes a review of social housing, rent control, regeneration for the people. May has announced the creation of £2 billion or $2.62 billion, a fund for building more council housing. Oh my gosh, you freaking kidding me. Okay, so now they're pointing out, okay, yeah, we need more social housing, so let's have the government build more houses. So at the same time, you're trying to, you want to create more jobs, but then by the government building more housing, okay, where does that money come from? Let's see. Okay, yeah, the taxpayers. So as you keep bleeding the taxpayers dry, where they don't have money to function, they don't have capital. If you don't have capital as an entrepreneur, how can you grow a business when the government's taking it all? Oh, but it's for a good cause. It's going to social housing to help the poor. But if you want to have growth in an economy, you want the makers to have the money, right? You want them to keep their money because they can go keep making things. Like look at when Steve Jobs, before he died. Steve Jobs was a builder, a maker, a creator. He made products before there was even a demand for them. He was looking ahead. He's like, this is what the consumer is going to want. He's the first one to create a smartphone with a touch screen. You could touch the screen. I mean, that was crazy at the time. I mean, would you want Steve Jobs? Would you want him to have more money to create more goods? Or would you want to keep taking away his money so now he could produce less? No, the way to help people out of poverty is to provide goods for them. And the goods keep getting better. And they're improving. You need these wealth creators, these wealth generators, so that they can keep creating more and more. That is what's going to help the poor. You don't want to keep taking money from those people. Because now, what? The government's going to get it. Oh, but they're investing it in social housing. Ooh, okay. Which so many people, especially on the left, they always make the mistake that they assume, well, but if the government doesn't do this, these people are going to be on the streets. Like no. Before the welfare state, what did we have? We had people, we had private charities, we had churches, and they helped people who couldn't help themselves, or if they were in a temporary rut, they helped get them out, at least get them on their feet. But then there was an incentive with these charities. Once these people were on their feet, okay, hey, we got to pull the money from you. You're free. You got to get going. You got to go make the most out of your life. This is your responsibility, what you do with it now. We got you out of your little hole you're in temporarily, but we now need our money, our funds that we get, and we've got to put it to use to someone else. We can't be subsidizing you your entire life, or how are we supposed to help other people? So with government having charity, the system is designed, the incentives are so screwed up where actually people want to stay in the rut. They don't want to get out of the rut. Because once you surpass a certain income threshold, oh, well, now your effective tax rate is about 100%. So why would you want to do that? You want to stay right under that threshold. So you're just going to squeak by all your life, and you're going to get funds from the government, be subsidized. And guess who you vote for on election day? Well, the guy who wants more government, who wants to increase money going to these programs. That is how screwed up the system is. That's the swamp. And along with the crony capitalism, all this sort of stuff. So, yeah, build more social housing, and have rent control. Okay, I've already talked about rent control in this show. We need to have a free market. That's how you get more goods. Why are people with rental housing units? Are you going to supply more rental housing or less when there's rent control? When you can't provide for maintenance anymore because you can't raise your rent to cover the costs? That is how in some of these big cities like New York City, these run-down buildings, rent control destroys this available supply, and it makes it worse for the people. But here, this lady in this piece is pointing out how this is a good possible solution. Unbelievable. And then here, just seriously, like 3 sentences left, maybe 4. Finally, Britain needs more effective rules and regulations to ensure that privatized utilities deliver cheaper, more sustainable services. Corbyn accuses companies of handing out large dividends to shareholders while infrastructure crumbles, service deteriorates, and companies pay far too little in taxes. May promises to end rip-off energy prices. Okay. So also, guys, keep in mind, this Corbyn and this May, these are 2 different parties over in Britain. Basically, you're looking at the right and the left. But they are green on a lot of these issues. They both are going to grow the size of government. So you got this Corbyn guy accusing companies of handing out large dividends to shareholders. But these guys, don't they always like to criticize corporations for hoarding all the money themselves? But if you're an investor in these companies as a shareholder, look at these companies are handing out money to the people, right? So here he is criticizing it as infrastructure crumbles. Well, again, this is more government infrastructure. All the sort of stuff that should be privately owned is not. So is any surprise that we see infrastructure crumbling? No. This is just crazy to me. And then here, you guys are going to love how she just ends this piece. This is just great. Not really. The orthodoxy established by Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan in the 1980s to roll back the state after a decade of profligate and bloated government is guilty as charged. A new consensus is emerging that more active and effective government is required to boost growth and expand opportunity. The jury is still out, however, on whether governments will be given the tools and support they need to rehabilitate the defendant. Okay, so she's pointing out, look, during times of Thatcher and Reagan, we saw a bloated government. So yeah, government was still huge. So wait a minute. I thought this whole time she's trying to point out, what's the title of this article? It's The Case Against Free Market Capitalism. Okay, the case against free market capitalism. And now she's pointing out back in the 1980s with this wild cowboy, Ronald Reagan, how there's a bloated government. But if it's a bloated government, I mean, that's not a free market, huh? So she's already going against everything she's already said. All the points she's making in this article, comparing the U.S. to all these other countries, a free market to a non-free market, essentially, is her whole argument, this whole piece. She just threw all that out the window, this last paragraph. And then she's pointing out, okay, yeah, the bloated government, that didn't work in the Reagan years. But if we can move to a more active and effective government, that is what's required, so that we can boost growth and expand opportunity. So we just have to have a more efficient government. And she's asking, okay, the jury's still out. Because the question is, are we going to allow governments, are we going to give them the tools that they need to support and to rehabilitate their countries? That's how she's ending this. So will we give the government more power over our lives, give the government more money so that they can do what's necessary to create this prosperous economy? Well, guys, this is why I'm doing all the traveling I'm doing. I went to Cuba. Yes, that's a communist country, one of 2 in the world right now. And there is no prosperity in Cuba. It is so run down. If you didn't listen to last week's episode, go back and listen to it. It literally looks like a town that hasn't been maintained in 60 years. It was just left to go. You know, it's like man was wiped from the earth and the city just is left there. Just no color, everything's just so bland, blah. There's no exciting new buildings. That's what communism gets you. Equal misery. That is what I saw in Cuba. And here this, what the hell's her name? Nagar Woods, thinking she's got it all figured out. Her arguments are so sound that she's somehow convincing people, which people on the left, they're looking at all this stuff. Yeah, they're taking notes. To them, it all makes sense. But they're missing some key aspects of when I was rebutting what she had to say. And so, ladies and gentlemen, you guys out there, we need to grow our base, because there is plenty of people out in this world that think like this Naguère Woods. That they think the solution, after all of this evidence we're seeing from our side, the destruction that big government causes, to us, it seems so obvious. Like, I mean, we know this doesn't work. But here's someone, Naguère Woods, she thinks that, no, what we need, if we actually want to have prosperity, if we just had more government, if we just had a more centrally controlled economy, education would be better, more people would be literate, able to read. Well, they'd be able to read. They'd be a lot better at reading just government propaganda. That's what they want people good at. And healthcare would be better. As I told you guys last week's episode, the healthcare in Cuba, I saw that hospital. The hospital looked disgusting and run down. I definitely wouldn't want to go there. It's just so amazing to me that people, again, it's just like your filter. What is your foundation? When you take in quote unquote facts, how you view the world and how you see things, you interpret the facts to adjust to your filter. And that is how we can talk to people and completely talk past one another. Because we're looking at things, we can see the exact same things, but see two completely different things. It's like when you watch movies. I mean, I always like try to watch movies and see like the deeper meaning in them, which probably isn't intended, but I still like to do it. Because you can get lessons out of things like that. And just understanding people and all that stuff just fascinates me. I like reading, like watching V for Vendetta, all those sort of great movies. That's why it's important for us. When we're talking to our friends and family, like, I'm getting frustrated when I'm reading this piece on this episode. But when I'm actually talking to people in person, I'm not saying like, are you kidding me? Do you really not get this? That's not how I talk to someone. I mean, obviously that doesn't work. You're really offending the hell out of them, and they're not going to listen to anything you have to say. So obviously your tactics should be a little bit different than what I'm doing on this episode, but it's also different when I'm doing a podcast. I'm in a room by myself and I'm talking to you guys. Basically I'm preaching to the choir, so I'm getting stuff out from our perspective. But the question is, how do we talk to people? As when we're seeing evidence of someone who's looking at facts but sees it in a completely different light, how do we get to someone who's not looking at things from our filter? Well, it's about building that foundation. So you got to start the very basics. And then you can work up to these issues. You just start talking about these issues that are like the issues of the day or whatever. You're never going to get anywhere with any of these people. You got to get them back to basics first. Just like, with Keynesian economics, you can talk about this and this and this. But it's like, okay, let's bring it down to a basic level. You're on a little island. You're trading with someone. Hey, I demand these goods. Well, wow, there's a lot of demand in this economy. Shouldn't things be great? But you demand these coconuts from this guy, but what are you going to trade with this guy so then you can get his coconuts? You can't just take his coconuts. I mean, I guess you could, but then you're creating a sort of society. If there's only two of you on the island, one of you is going to end up dead. Or you're going to always be fearing your life and like, oh crap, if he doesn't kill me, I will. And you create a sort of war, and that's not how you want to live. But if you want to trade with this guy, if you want his coconuts, what can you produce so that you can trade with him? What is something that he would want? And so in this country, in this world, any sort of thing, you have demand for, you want to buy some good. Okay, what can you do? How can you become more productive? How can you make more money? So then, yes, we always have demands for things, but we need to produce first in order to consume. Keynesian economics flips that on its head. That's all about, we just got to increase demand in the economy. No, there's always demand. But how can we increase production? You increase production by creating incentives for people to produce. Create an environment where entrepreneurs can thrive. What environment could you create where entrepreneurs can thrive? I'm thinking so hard about this one. A free market. Getting the government the hell out of the way. That is what creates an entrepreneurial environment with low barriers to entry, low taxes, where people are free to create. That is what we have to do. That is how you get a growing economy. Isn't that simple? So now when you talk to someone, that is a simple way to talk about it. Like, that's kind of hard to disagree with. Bringing it back to basics. And so it's just always, as you say, if you fail talking with one person, you can just always be thinking about how you said things like, okay, I could have said that a little bit differently. Okay. And just keep fine tuning the way you approach people and talk to people about these things. And also, I stress this, because it helps out wonders when you're talking with someone. Don't think you can convert someone on the spot. It's not going to happen. But most people don't realize when you go through life, it doesn't matter what it is. This doesn't have to be political or anything like that. Anything you do, most people have no idea the influence you have on other people. It could be a simple thing you do that you don't even notice that anyone else is noticing you. You know, just being nice and polite to people. Just certain things are in certain people's minds, or you just say a certain thing, you're arguing to someone, say it is political or whatever, or you're talking economics. There could also be another person that's listening, and a light bulb could go off in their head, like, oh, wow, I never thought of it that way before. But they were never involved in the conversation, or even the person you talk to. As long as you're not trying to prove that you're the smartest guy in the room, you're just, hey, let's just talk, be friendly. Like, who cares? I don't think I know I'm not the smartest guy. But talking to people about this stuff, I always like to get people to think, and heck, I can give you guys an example. I was just talking with one of my coworkers. She kind of comes down on the socialist line. She's a Bernie Sanders supporter. And we were just, me and this other guy, we're talking to her about this stuff. And I was just bringing things back to basics and just pointing out. And you could just see, like, she wasn't trying to, like, rattle off bumper sticker stuff. She's kind of pointing out some typical sort of socialist sort of things. But I'm just responding in a kind, gentle way and just, well, what about, look at it this way. And just, and you're just getting someone to think. Because the last thing you want to do is to say something that is like you're offending them. Because once you offend someone, their little switch goes off and they ain't going to listen to anything you say. So you can just keep talking. They ain't listening. Because most people, actually, no. Okay, I'm going to end this episode here. Wow, I've been going way too long here. Most people aren't really good at listening. Whenever you're in a conversation with someone, you can tell when someone's not listening and you're talking, because they're ready to, they're ready to say what they have on their mind, and so they're just trying to think of how they want to say it, and so they don't have any idea what you're saying. But yeah, if we want to become better arguers, we need to become better listeners. Then you can tweak your message to exactly what that person's saying. Then that's where you can find, and maybe you can find that light bulb moment for that person that you're talking to. So become a better listener. So that's what I challenge you guys on today's episode before I head off on the Contra Cruise. There's a small group of libertarians. We take over the boat. Well, not really. It's going to be a blast. I'm guessing there'll probably be, 150 of us. I have no idea. But yeah, we have meetings on the ship. Let's see, it's a 7-day cruise. We are going to Haiti, poor country. We're going to Jamaica, and then we're going to Cozumel. So it's going to be just an amazing time. It's going to be great to see some guys and girls who were on the last Contra Cruise, the first annual one, might I add, because I went last year. And it's just so much fun. So I'm looking at having a blast again with just a great group of people. They really are. So guys, I thank you so much for listening to the show today. Again, you can go to my website, justinmooreshow.com. Hurry, get signed up so you can be in the drawing for the silver coin that will be announced on next week's episode, or the next episode I have when I get back from the Contra Cruise. So go join Tom Wood's Liberty Classroom. You can donate $50 to my show. You get my bonus episodes, and you're in the drawing for the silver coin. Man, go help yourself today. Help become more knowledgeable by joining Tom Wood's Liberty Classroom. And then, and you, ladies and gentlemen, we can make a difference. We really can. And it's exciting when you see it in other people, and just getting people to think. Because on average today, most people just kind of go through the motions. They don't think, well, why is this? People don't ask why. Why? Well, why is a very, very important question to ask yourself. Why am I doing this? What am I pursuing in life? Why? What is my why? Ladies and gentlemen, let's go change the world. Again, thank you guys for being here. I'll talk to you guys when I get back from the Contra Cruise, and I'm looking forward to it. This is Justin Moore, signing off.